One of my most memorable childhood Christmas traditions was every year my mom would get the box down from the attic and set up the nativity set. It looked quite a bit like this one, but much smaller and not quite as nice as this. But it was meaningful because every year Mom would pull out each piece and explain to us in a very sentimental way just how meaningful the Christmas story was. And I remember always having, what would we call it, warm fuzzies back then about just how special that time of birth must have been. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that it was actually a very difficult time. Mom never told us how difficult it would be for a 9-month pregnant woman to travel 100 miles, either on barefoot or on the back of a donkey. And she, of course, never told us about how the fact that King Herod wanted to kill the infant, or that unexpected trip to Egypt to flee King Herod and his troops who were after Jesus. But even today, when I hear the Christmas story again, like we just heard this evening, I still have some of those sentimental feelings, and that's okay. I hope some of you did as well. I think, though, when I grew up a little bit, I'm still working on it, but as I grew up a little bit, I realized that that trip was really difficult and probably somewhat dangerous for Mary and Joseph to go from Nazareth all the way down to Bethlehem. It was almost 100 miles, and as far as we know, as the story goes, she was 9 months pregnant. Now, we basically put Mary on the back of a donkey. We don't know exactly if she was on a donkey or if she was, how much of the way. But let me just tell you, as I imagine a woman 9 months pregnant, even on the back of a donkey would be very, very, very difficult. But you know, as I have heard the story over and over and over again, it has occurred to me that the figures that we see up here set the tone for all the rest of the Gospels and the New Testament story combined. For we have, first of all, shepherds who were basically the ones that took the job that nobody else really wanted to do. We think, oh, how sweet, how nice, shepherds. These were the people who spent all night long with the dirty sheep watching them because nobody else wanted to do it. I remember when my son Polani was starting high school in California, that first month or so of school, there was a field trip, and of all places, it was to the sewage reclamation plant on the San Francisco Bay. And Polani came home that day and said, now that's one job I know I never ever want to do. In fact, I said, well, what was it like? And he said, well, it smelled, first of all. And I said, well, duh, it's a sewage reclamation plant. And he said, but what was bizarre, the guy that was there couldn't smell it anymore. He said, I just love my job. And one of the kids raised his hand and he goes, what about the smell? And he goes, oh, it's wonderful. After a few days, you don't smell anything anymore. And Polani said, you know, one of the things that really made me want to go to college is when the man said, you can have a job like this and you don't even need to go to college for it. So I was thinking about that today when I was thinking about the shepherds, and I thought, that's the kind of job a shepherd had. Nobody really wanted that smelly job. And yet, the shepherds right here are part of the story. And then over here we've got the Magi, and of course we think of them as kings, but as far as we know, there was nothing kingly about the Magi. They were foreigners who practiced a really strange and different religion, had different customs, different culture, and they were looked down upon by the people of Israel. And yet, here they are. The people who were looked down upon because they were foreigners, they showed up at this special occasion. Now, we think of Joseph and Mary as this sweet couple, but I guarantee back then, everybody else would have seen an unmarried, pregnant girl, probably a teenage girl, and her husband without any other family around. They would have been scorned. In fact, Jesus was born into this kind of community. At least we have the angel. Now, I do want to say that when I look at these figures here, this indeed sets the story for all the rest of the Gospels, because if these figures were welcome at the birth of Jesus, wasn't that Jesus' message all along? Everyone is welcome. The people that had the jobs that nobody else wanted to do, the foreigners that people looked down upon because of their strange religion and customs, and this young couple where the teenage girl was unmarried and pregnant. Indeed, if these are the figures that can show up for the birth of Jesus Christ, truly there's hope for each and every one of us. And there's an invitation to us as well. If these rascals, this motley crew, can show up right here, and this is what we sing about 2,000 years later, I guarantee there is hope for each and every one of us. As we ponder for just a moment here and think about how this event truly is not just one of the most inclusive events in history, especially for that time, but it actually is an event that would just be unheard of. We have heard this story so many times that it's kind of a part of what we expect. But the first people that heard that story in the first century, when they heard who showed up, they were aghast. How in the world would a king be born and shepherds show up? Foreigners? This guy, Joseph, was just a carpenter, and his fiancée was pregnant. And you know what? They say that it was somebody else's baby. I hope that I didn't destroy Christmas for you, especially the children that are here. But I want you to know that this is a blessed story because everybody is welcome to show up and celebrate the birth of Jesus. And the story continues. We continue to be welcome, whatever our past is, whatever our job is, whatever country we come from, whoever we are, we're welcome to be here in the midst and to continue the story. I thank you for showing up tonight to be a part of the story.